Well, yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We got a super special guest with us, Miguel Conner, host of Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio. We're both fans of the show, so this is cool. Stoked to have you.
Couldn't be
Thanks for
happier.
having me on. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me on.
yeah. You are our first guest, actually. So, so yeah, bear with us, and hopefully, if you have to steer us in the right direction, feel free.
First
No
guest and
worries, I
also
will.
first guest and also the reason kind of the first time we started talking about this, he mentioned to listen to you. I'm new at this, new getting into this, and he mentioned to listen to Aeon Byte, and yeah, thank you very much, Andrew and Miguel, for that.
Right on, right on. So yeah, I guess to kind of kick it off, the sort of the thesis of our show is basically just that Canada is sort of in a state of hypnosis more than anything. You know, we are a northern isolated kind of country and under a dominion spell of sorts, and yeah, so we thought who better to have on than the king of Gnosis himself, and hopefully we can start changing the tide here in Canada a little bit. So
Never
yeah,
easy. It's never easy. I mean, it is sort of a cosmic law that the more freedom you have, the less safety you're going to have. The more safety you have, the more freedom you are, or less freedom you'll have. So it's a question of what do you choose? And often people and entire populations will choose safety over freedom. You can't blame them, right? We all want to, walk the streets, be safe, make sure our food is clean and all that. But I do believe that the only way to grow, especially if you want to evolve psychically and spiritually, is with freedom. I think that's the natural state of a human being. That's why I consider myself an anarchist, which, of course, is Greek for no archons. So, as Lao Tzu said, the more laws we pass, the more criminals we make.
no, that hits for sure.
And Canada loves making more laws.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like
a lot of criminals. Everybody would
Yeah.
one day they'll make them so the government will make itself a criminal, not even know, and have to arrest itself or something.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Not here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I was trying to make some connections between, like the Gnostic belief framework and sort of like how that's been kind of held down in Canada. As far as like the divine spark thing, I feel like that was really prevalent in our First Nations people, and they kind of came in and put the boots to that pretty quick. I'm just wondering like how you kind of see the connection between the early Gnostics and I don't know whether First Nations people from the United States kind of fit that archetype as well, but
Excuse me. Yeah, they definitely would. I mean, obviously, the founding fathers, despite the majority being Christians, they were certainly influenced by the early Enlightenment, and many of the main ones were Rosicrucians and Hermeticists and Freemasons. There was this fire of independence and exploration and so forth. And a lot of these traditions certainly harken back to the Gnostics. Maybe not agree with them in their worldview, but they certainly saw the Gnostics as that sort of ancient light of freedom. The Gnostics were a threat to the nascent church and to many secular governments because it was this idea that the human being carries a universe within themselves and they can directly access the higher worlds or an expanded form of consciousness. So it doesn't go well with civilization and organized religion and all that. There was a group of Gnostics that called itself in the Roman Empire times a generation without a king. And there was a church father, the Clement of Alexandria, who said, the Gnostics are so addicted to the truth that they will not give an oath. They would not pledge themselves. So this type of attitude certainly causes a lot of trouble for empires and governments and bureaucracies. And of course, the Gnostics are really not the first ones. They were tapping into the ancient cynics and Diogenes, who was telling people, civilization has got us away from nature and away from our own nature. We got to get down to basics. And a lot of the Gnostic writings certainly, talk about that, about that things have gone wrong and we have been enslaved and we've lost our agency. And this theme and drama has been going on for thousands of years in society. And here we are in a very interesting time where we might lose our soul to technology, literally, and our freedoms and everything else. But what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
What can you do? Well, not what can you do, but I guess be who you are and try to find your true calling and navigate your way through it.
That's
Essentially.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the Gnostic texts, and as somebody in the New York Times said, it sounds like a bunch of mystics, madmen, and sages talking all at once. But always they call upon yourself to know thyself. So that's the big one. And regardless of where we are in time and history, it's always about self-knowledge, going within, finding out who you are in relation to the world, in relation to your true call, as you say, and following your call. That's it. That's the best we can do. And each one of us has an important mission, a mission that carries consequence, maybe the butterfly effect. But you could see that as simply go watch Lord of the Rings. That's what does Galadriel say? Even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And and when Gandalf tells Frodo, nobody wants to be born in these times. All you can do is do the best you can with the time that's allotted with you. So that's it. Don't try to change the world. Yeah, like you said, find out what your purpose is and do that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't
completely
agree.
Yeah.
We recently did an episode on Wendigo or Wetiko, and that came up. It was sort of like the cure for that mind virus is creativity itself. It's like bringing out that inner child, right? So I think that's it's definitely the propaganda machine is obviously strong down in the US as well, but I feel But
yeah,
I mean,
once they figured out that you can't just tyrannize a population, they had to come up with propaganda. Is the mind control thing, and these governments have gotten very good at it, and that's how you get the mass formation and totalitarian regimes. Because as Matthias Desmet, who wrote a great book on totalitarianism, said, sure, in the Middle Ages and other times, you had a king. He controlled everything, but you could still be yourself in your house. You could still be yourself at church. You could be out in nature. You could be yourself. But with totalitarian regimes like the Soviets, like today with the United States and Canada, you can't even be yourself in front of your family, in your house, because of social media or at your job. Every part of you is being surveyed, and everything is sort of a judgment that will be tallied somewhere. So it's pretty intense.
Well, and on top of it, like I guess we still have a king, so to speak. Here, he did I don't know if you saw that, but when Carney was sworn in, the king actually came and addressed the,
which hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. Ever.
I don't think, or
first
at least
time
not
a king ever
for a long time. Yeah. But I mean,
isn't your constitution still pledged to England, or has something about England?
Yeah, we're a crown country, right? It's like, so I think kind of operates the same as Australia, New Zealand. But yeah, it's interesting because we have that sort of that holding us down, and then on the flip side of it, we're also America's like redheaded stepchild up north. That and so we're kind of under that foot as well. Everything here, like growing up, everything that I consumed was American for the most part, other than the very Canadian things that were kind of made to be that. But everything, so we have this influence from the crown, and then we have this illusion of freedom from our connection to America, and it's just this kind of clashing ideas, you know.
Yeah,
So
well, you have Rush,
yeah,
one of my favorite bands, and that band really talks about freedom and independence and
yeah,
anarchy
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So yeah, and I think I saw Carney recently talking about, yeah, they're going to start punishing social media accounts because there's so much disinformation coming from Americans. Oh my God, we got to stop that. So
yeah,
it's yeah, it's unfortunately what's happened in Canada, but it's like the petri dish for experimenting, mind control and propaganda. And if it
for,
works, they'll try it over here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very much a kind of a Truman Show thing going on up here, which Jim Carrey is Canadian, so
Yeah,
the simulation provides.
How
it
far
is.
back do you think it goes, us being a testing ground? Do you think it's way, way, way back before Canada was even a country, or like
God,
has this been in play for hundreds and hundreds of years?
well, it depends how you look at it. If you look at it from a spiritual level, a connection to the world, then it's always been happening. Whether it's the Anunnaki or the Olympians or the God of the Hebrew Bible, there's always a control system to make humans slaves, right?
Mhm.
You see that in the great myths. The Anunnaki, created humans to be their slaves, and Enki. Prometheus created human beings so that the Olympus would have slaves. The Garden of Eden, probably the original story, Adam and Eve were supposed to be gardeners and just take care of the sacred fruit for the Elohim and so forth. So this has always been in play. And even if you think, well, they're just myths, they're not real, somebody was right. Myths are coded messages. They are
Yeah,
great
Mhm.
lessons that are history that is always eternal, that is always happening. So this has been going on forever. And there's different apparatuses, religion, the king, so many. But now, it's certainly been really supercharged with the development of technology and the industrial revolution, getting everybody into the cities where people are easier to corral and herd and so forth. Tyranny requires centralization. So the more you can do that, but yeah, with technology, again, you don't even have to terrify your population with the guillotine or something like that. Technology can just hypnotize people, or the fear of again being not part of society. It's like with the Soviet Union, one of its successes wasn't the fear so much, because the USSR was a very big territory, and they did not have the manpower to police all the cities and the tens of billions of Russians that were out there. What they were able to do was, to be effective, they were able to brainwash enough people where it would be your neighbors or family who would turn you in. That's how the Soviet Union really worked. And again, we see that today.
oh
Social
yeah,
media,
Yeah.
families, all that. If you have a wrong thought, you'll be denounced, lose your job, whatever it is. It's not like, people will have a conversation. Hey, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. Let's have a debate at a coffee shop. No, you'll get turned in or lambasted publicly or something like that. That's where we're heading. So technology is really, really giving the Archons a shot in the arm.
yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree. I come from a food and beverage background and bartended for a long time in the mid to late 90s, before technology was around. And so I was there when there were no cell phones at the bar, and then all of a sudden everyone has a cell phone. And within a year or two of that happening,
Mhm.
there used to be good conversations, is what
Yeah,
I'm getting at. People could disagree. You know what I mean? And now it's not like that. Now it's duality, I guess. Like it's one or the other. And
Yeah, divide and conquer. That's how they
yeah,
get us.
yeah.
Separate us and have us at each other's throats.
And then separate the groups once more and separate and separate. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I feel like they tried that authoritarian kind of push up here during the trucker convoy thing. When they started stomping grandmas with RCMP horses and all that, and I think that was about as close as they came, and then it was sort of like it took a shift back to that Russian approach, you know, oh, okay, no, we're just going to actually go back to having people hate their neighbors because
Yeah.
this is too in your face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I don't know how long you can get away with it, because both Canada and the United States, well, Europe too, the cost of living is so high. And, you know, the younger generations are screwed. I'm kind of screwed because I've always been a freelancer, but the idea of owning a home or having money in the bank or retiring is evaporating across the West. And at some point, I mean, it was smart that the Canadians made it all about Trump instead of the economy for the last election. The powers that be, and you wonder if Trump was in on it too, because he's like, you know, all the noise he made about annexing Canada somehow just vanished. You know, he doesn't talk about that anymore, though.
No.
But it just made all the Canadians, or a group of Canadians, you know, the boomers who own houses, to, you know, circle the wagons and get Carney in. And, you know, Carney is just, he's doing what our politicians do, is, you know, the demolition of the middle class and the working class. So how long will we take it? It depends how many distractions they can keep throwing at us until we just say, you know, we're not going to take it, and rise up politically against all these demons.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because, you know, like, obviously they've had a civil war. They have this history of kind of standing up for their freedoms, whereas Canada doesn't really have that.
No.
So I feel like you can feel something bubbling, and not that it's going to, you know, spill over the edge, but there's definitely a sentiment in Canada where people are fatigued by all of it. But there's just not the cojones that exist down south, you know, I really question if the spell has too strong of a hold on people up here, you know.
Yeah, it probably does, but as again Matthias Desmet said in his book on totalitarianism, all you need is 20% of the population, because it's usually, you know, 20% are the ones who want freedom, you know, be left alone, all that, and then you have the 20% who are the extremists on the other side who want more communist type of radical government, and then everybody else is sort of in the middle and can be swayed. And if you can get just 20% of the population in Canada, that will make a big difference, and probably enough to sway enough people to really tip the scale. So that's why people like you, it may be your first podcast, but it might be the most important podcast in the world, right? That again, that Hobbit thing, that little thing, and you keep at it and convince and try to wake up people one at a time, and something good could happen. Or you might end up in jail. So I'll see you guys. I'll send you guys some flowers or some gifts. Or
appreciate that. Yeah.
So
we do try. Like discussions I have with people at work, even, you know, I mean, there was that party a month ago or short while ago. It was actually around the election, and it was a gentleman who would have voted conservative, but said he was voting for Carney because of Trump. And I was like, first of all, I don't think I don't believe in the two-party system anyway. I don't think the Conservative Party in Canada is any better than the Liberals.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't understand why. And his only thing he could say was Trump.
The capitulation was so fast and so hard, and that it was, it kind of blew my mind. Because again, like, I don't really fall on either side of the political spectrum. I understand that they all work for the same people, and it is what it is. But like, just the amount of even, you know, older folks in my family that are fairly conservative just turn the other way. Just, you know. It was almost out of ease. I think it was part of that fatigue, you know, but,
and Facebook told them to.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of that too. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. It was incredible, but not surprising, as they say. So
no, not at all.
For sure.
I will say though, getting back to that, the more people I've spoken to, a lot of people are very aware. I just don't think they know what to do either. Like people know something is very wrong in this country, but I personally don't think voting is going to change anything. That's just me.
No,
it'll be the same old.
Yeah.
No, it's what Philip K. Dick said. I think it was it Emma Goldman, one of the first anarchists. She said if voting made a difference, they wouldn't allow us to vote. Do you think
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bankers like Carney and the military industrial complex and the pharmaceutical and all the other power brokers of this world would allow it to exist if it made a difference? Of course not. It's a nice distraction, and as Philip K. Dick said, to fight the empire is to become infected with its derangement. So even so, whether you push back or try to vote or change or drain the swamp, it's not going to work. Again, it really is about going inward and disengaging and starving the empire.
Yeah.
If more people would make their own clothes, grow their own food, disconnect from, consumerism, one at a time, then that would definitely start affecting the empire or moving away from the cities and becoming more isolated. So then that's the game where the empire really starts to fall.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't fight back before. Do you know what I mean?
They could try, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's killing your own citizens. Yeah, or I don't think that's a bridge too far, even for the boomers, even for Canadian boomers on Facebook.
Yeah, fair
Awesome.
enough. Well, yeah, I guess Mike, you had a few questions.
I did, yeah. Sorry, let me flip to them. I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah, we did. First of all, we did read Occult Elvis, and well, I do have a few questions about that after, but kind of staying on the Canadian thing. Canada's a very big open space. Do you think the absence and silence, do you think that's something? It's hard because it seems like no one is moving in the right direction, but maybe with that open space, would it be possible? Is that a space for Gnosis?
Yeah, of course.
Or for the growth of Gnosis?
There's spirits everywhere. There's plenty of space. I think a lot of it has to do with like you said, the mythologies of the people. The United States has this mythology that affects our psyche. Rebel, overthrow the empire, never let them take your guns, all that. And of course, it's a double-edged sword. But, because Americans are just always so out of control and don't trust anybody and always want to, fight. But at the same time, sometimes hard to take over our minds. So there's this dichotomy, although the American people are in many ways as as mind control as the Canadians. So I can't say that Americans are much better, but yeah, it really, it goes back to just, every person needs to find who they are and go inward. That's the game, how it's won, and read more history books and so forth. And, that's really the game, because it is a personal way. How you are going to rebel or disengage from the empire, starve the empire, is completely unique. There's no one size fit all. That's the thing what people get turned off about the Gnostics, despite their kind of drastic worldview that sees everything as the Matrix. But the idea that every person has a unique spiritual constitution. So there's no listicle or commandments that if you take this, you're going to wake up. No, your awakening is yours. What did Clark Emery say? The awakening of any individual is a cosmic event, but it's still a personal one. And unfortunately, as humans, sometimes we want others to, again, it's that safety thing. We want others just to give us the answers, make us safe, and we'll be all right and we'll get along. But that's not the way it is. And it doesn't matter who the people are or anything. I mean, you can look at the fall of the Soviet Union, which all the think tanks that were around, the CIA, MI6, all those, Mossad, they did not expect the Soviet Union to fall like it did. It surprised everybody. And it was something that happened with Poland, with Lech Walesa, the uprising in Romania, people uprising in East Germany, and almost overnight, without that much of a bloodshed, actually very little fighting, this empire that existed for 80 years, which controlled half of the world, just collapsed now. So it could happen anywhere at any time. Obviously, we don't want what happened to Russia, what happened afterwards to Russia, although you might blame the CIA for that kind of all these issues. But it could happen anywhere. Again, if the people have had enough and they wake up and they simply do the right thing, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm definitely seeing, at least in, so I'm what, 10,
15,
15 years
almost
younger than
15
you? Yeah.
years, or 15 years.
I'm noticing kind of a trend in my generation of people kind of coming back to spirituality, which tends to obviously happen in sticky times. But like, the thing is it's I've noticed is almost this like this mainstream push towards like Christianity and the old religions, old like those kind of mainstream old religions. I know a lot of people that are getting into like Orthodox teachings again because they're very kind of rigid and laid out for you. And I'm almost wondering if some of the push towards that is a way to sort of avoid people from having that like further gnosis, right? Like it's still there's still a guideline there. There's still, so it kind of, I don't know. I feel like it's creating a bit of a wall, and it's purposeful.
Yeah, I don't know how to look at that. Yeah, I think a lot of people do see Christianity as, again, a religion of order, of safety. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that God himself says in the Old Testament, I am the God of order, not chaos. So they might see in the chaos of our collapsing economies and the social unrest and the wars that could lead to World War III at any moment, probably will. They see a comfort. They see a community that's tightly knit. They see, again, this God of order that will help them. So I can't blame them for going back to that type of religion. I don't have any problems. Or let's say I have a lot of problems, but I don't have any animosity towards Christianity. If you're honestly searching for the divine and an experience and a community, then yeah, go, knock yourself out. I myself just prefer chaos too. I like both. I want law and chaos. I want those
Yeah.
lunar, serpentine, ancient, holistic wisdom ways too that the shamans and others also embrace. So I want a little bit of both, but I don't know if the solution, obviously, I don't think the solution is that we become more of a Christian country or continent.
Right.
We already tried that, right? We know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened.
No, for sure. Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at with it. Is it almost feels like they're like, oh well, this worked to control once, so we'll allow them to go down this path because at least we know where this ends up, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, nature abhors a vacuum, and I know atheists don't like to hear it, but we are hardwired for religion, for a mystic experience. It's who the saying, the guy who wrote Ringworld, but he said the character's death, and he goes. He goes, no, humans don't need fantasy to deal with life. Humans need fantasy to be human. We are where the fallen angel meets the rising ape. Our imagination, our search for metaphysics and something greater is what makes us human, what keeps us alive, and what allows us to evolve. Somebody had to imagine the plane or the skyscraper or all these things. I mean, you look at all the fathers of physics, whether it's Niels Bohr and others, half of them, they got their ideas from dreams and visions and so forth. They were into Taoism and Kabbalah and all these things. So we do need to be religious as humans. There's no choice, or else we will literally just stop. We will die, or we will create religions from the state or George Floyd or it doesn't matter who, or I don't know, the Beatles. We will create religions
Yeah.
because that's what we do as humans. So I think we have to be careful because if there is a void or if we're not being religious enough, the government will find things for us to worship or we'll end up worshiping the wrong thing. So there has to
For
be.
sure.
We are religious and we are spiritual on an innate level.
Right. Yeah. No, agreed. Yeah, the Beatles, that was my dad's religion for sure.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, exactly. Or yeah, they were certainly a religion for
yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
what was the saying? Clapton is God. You used to see that written in England all the time. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. He had kind of a Jesus-y look there for a little bit, I guess. But
yeah. Or
Cool.
Yeah, you're either a Beatles guy or an Elvis guy, right?
that's it. You're a Beatles
Yeah.
person or an Elvis person. You cannot be
Yeah.
both.
No.
Yeah.
And you're Beatles.
I'm a well,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're Beatles. I'm fully Elvis. Yeah.
Yeah, when my dad passed away, I got all of his records, and there were some Elvis ones in there, obviously from his time, but I think they were the first ones that I sold to the record store.
Oh,
Wow.
That's-
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You know,
it's not a problem. I mean, I'm an Elvis person. I thought I was a Beatles person most of my life, but now I'm an Elvis person. So,
well, yeah, mind you, this was before I knew anything about Elvis being a shaman, so my opinion has since changed, but there was definitely, I always viewed him as just, even more of the manufactured pop star than the Beatles were,
yeah.
and obviously are, like,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. No, he's on the part of chaos, I would say. He's part of the shaman and the magician. So I mean, I do love John Lennon. I think he's fascinating, deep thinker, mystic, all that, had a UFO experience, but I would say I'm an Elvis person. It reminds me of that story when the Beatles met Elvis and they're hanging out in Elvis's mansion. So, of course, all the fans are outside, a throng of people. And, of course, they start shouting at each other, Elvis, Beatles, Elvis. But you know what? They didn't get into fights or riots or anything or turn themselves in. It was just kind of a fun thing you did back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, we can talk about the book a bit if you want. I'm sure you've been talking about it lots lately. So, but kind of how did that come about? Because like you said, you thought you were a Beatles person. So what was the ping that made you dive into Elvis?
Yeah, I was very proud to be a Beatles person all my life. I didn't think much of Elvis at all. And I thought he was the music version of McDonald's or Mountain Dew or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So, but as I got older and you read more history, you start appreciating the history of rock music, whether it's Elvis or B.B. King or Robert Johnson. You're okay, these guys definitely influence. I mean, like John Lennon said, before Elvis, there was nothing. The first time John Lennon heard Heartbreak Hotel, something awoke within him. So in a way, I was like, oh, well, there you go. Without Elvis, there would be no Beatles or David Bowie or Led Zeppelin. So he had his place, but that's all I care. And I had read a lot about his occult stuff, but I just shrugged it off, kind of like, well, all rock stars are into weird stuff. We're used to, right? Movie stars, rock stars are eccentric and they went down this path and we sort of write it off and don't think about it as long as they're putting out good albums. But it was, I think it was summer of 2022, a series of syncs like put Elvis in my head. He kept popping up. I went back home to Portugal to visit my family, and I did some ayahuasca ceremonies with a group there. And suddenly Elvis was everywhere in my head. I mean, I just couldn't get him out. I couldn't stop listening to his music. And I watched the Baz Luhrmann movie and a few documentaries, but a voice. It wasn't an autonomous voice, but it was certainly a voice that was in my head. Kept saying, there's a story about me that that the world hasn't seen or the world hasn't accepted. And basically it was telling me I needed to tell this story. And I'd never written a biography in my life or anything, or even written about music or, rock history, but it just kept consuming me. And around February of 2023, I sort of gave up And I sat down with only one bio in front of me, still knowing very little about Elvis, and I just started writing this book, and it sort of, it was channeled. It sort of poured out of me, and within 3 months, I had the first draft, a good first
Wow.
working
Wow.
draft. I couldn't believe it, 80,000 words, 250 pages, and it was a full history of Elvis's alternative spirituality, mystic experience, UFO encounters, conspiracy theory interests, just all the stuff that the world had missed, or most of the world had missed, or people just hadn't accepted. And it just happened. And I knew sometimes it's true because if you don't do what the God say, or your soul say, or the spirit, or whatever, call it whatever you want, the alternative is always more pain. Doing sometimes what your soul is or your purpose is painful, but not doing it is a lot more painful. And it's what
Yeah.
Plato called the divine madness, which he thought it was the great honor was to be invaded by Dionysus or your muse or Apollo, and you had to be taken over and just do what the god wanted you to do, but you'd also have an experience. So that's kind of what happened. I remember before I started sitting down writing the book, my left hips really hurt, and I was having problems walking the dogs, going down the stairs. I'm like, oh my god, I'm in my 50s. Oh, my hips going. I'm going to need a new hip. It was terrible, but as soon as I started writing this book, the hip pains went away. Now, of
Hmm.
course, when we think of hips, you always think of Elvis, right?
Yeah.
The Beatles had the mop tops, Elvis had the hips. So I was like, okay, this is a sign I'm on the right way. So it was it was an experience. It just sort of came out of me, and then I was able to get a publishing deal pretty fast that summer, and it came out. Yeah, it came out this April.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really interesting with the physical response with with the hip being that's like the root chakra too, right? So healing that
All right.
doing what you're meant to do and rooting yourself in that healed your hip.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Did you by chance come across any interesting Elvis in Canada facts while you were doing your research? I know he only played here, I
No.
think, twice. I tried to find some stuff, but
That's it. I think it was Vancouver. Vancouver. Yeah, he never toured outside of the United States except for those, I think, 2 shows in Vancouver. And
the
people have always wondered why didn't he tour outside? Because there's many speculations of why he didn't do it. I want to be romantic that he was a shaman connected to the land, but then others said it's because of his manager Colonel Parker, who was actually an illegal alien, and some said was wanted for murder in Holland, and he was sort of hiding here.
no way.
He didn't
Huh.
want to leave the country because he would worry that, Interpol or somebody would eventually nab him.
Right.
But it's still, in a way, it doesn't make sense because, uh, I mean, Elvis was the most famous person on earth, and Parker was like his second half, his other half, right?
Mhm.
So you think all those decades with the media, nobody ever tried to dig up Colonel Parker's identity? That never happened. I mean, people, today they'll find it out, within days.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s, there were investigative reporters. So, and at the same time, when Elvis was in the army, Colonel Parker didn't leave the country, and it's not like Parker really cared. He's like, okay, you're over there, and I'm over here. You do what you do, and I'll do what I do.
Hmm.
So I don't know about. And then, of course, there's the other one too, is that because of Elvis's paranoia, which was a lot of it was founded because there was always so many like blackmail threats, death threats, all that. I mean, he was always under the gun, pardon the expression, and so he always well, first of all, he learned a lot of karate, but he was always armed to the teeth. So
Mhm.
he would not go anywhere without his guns on his presence. And of course, the other thing he would not travel without would be his pills. So some say that's the reason he didn't travel because as long as he was in the United States, private jets or whatever, he could, carry
Yeah.
weapons and drugs or do whatever he can. Now, some say again that towards in the late 70s, before he died, he was like, screw it, I'm just gonna take a risk and I want to tour Japan and London and all that. So, but with Elvis, it's always an enigma. It's somebody that big and mythological. He's almost like you can find a contradiction or an argument for or against anything he did.
Yeah, yeah, it's those larger than life figures, right? Like you hear the stories of Prince floating and stuff like that. It's like, well, I don't not believe it, you know?
It's another red pill person. Yeah, Prince was very mystical and he's certainly very into conspiracies like Elvis.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I said, there was really not a whole lot of connections to make between Elvis and Canada. The one interesting thing I did find was when he played here, it was in Canada where he retired that his gold suit, the famous gold
Oh,
suit.
wow. Really?
So it, almost like an offering to Canada kind of thing, and then leave the gold jacket and never come back.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thought that was
yeah.
kind of neat, but yeah.
Yeah, he was very gracious and he was a very colorblind person. He didn't critique or think any culture or person was different or less. He really loved all people equally.
Right on. Yeah, cool. Did you have any other questions?
I do not actually.
No?
No.
I guess
I do have Larry Geller, Elvis's. Did you have a Larry Geller in your life? You don't have to. Someone that kind of, because it seems like I know that he was into everything before, but it seems like that was the moment that it really pushed him in the direction he went. Was there someone in your life like that?
No, I can't say there's anybody at the level of Geller. So, yeah, I mean, Larry Geller was, as they say, when the student is ready, the master will appear. So Geller came right at the perfect time in 64 when Elvis was disillusioned with his life, with his career, with all the money. It just nothing made sense. He was unhappy. He still hadn't resolved his childhood trauma and losing his mother. So Geller came right at the perfect time and just opened the doors. Yeah, Elvis was, he'd had it with mainstream Christianity. He didn't like the churches, thought they were businesses, didn't like the God of Hellfire. And Geller opened him to all the esoteric stuff out there, from Taoism to Theosophy to Manly P. Hall, numerology and astrology, and really guided Elvis. Also to Dayamata, who was the successor of Yogananda. She was also a big flame for Elvis's life. So, and it worked out too because Elvis was so larger than life. It's not like it was almost a perfect relationship because Elvis really couldn't be taken in because he was just so big. And there was a time where Parker eventually, through a long campaign, was able to create a wedge between Elvis and Geller. And that included the idea that, he's just another gold digger trying to, take your money to build his own temple and all that. But their friendship, it paused for about 4 years, and then they reconnected again. And until Elvis died, Geller was definitely one of his closest associates. So very good influence. I mean, Elvis himself told Geller, if you hadn't come into my life, I would have been dead by 1970. So, he really helped temper the flame that was Elvis, the comet that would have burned out before.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think was Elvis's demise then? Obviously, if he was so open to everything, it seems weird to me that he would. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be that type of figure, but it just seems kind of counter to what his belief system was. The way he kind of just fell apart.
Yeah, I don't fell apart. I tried to provide in the book various reasons, mostly esoteric, mystical, from Rudolf Steiner to Carl Jung, and try to map the rise and fall of Elvis. And I try to use some alternative psychology about, his addiction and all that. So I try to provide different views about such an incredible passing. But I think my favorite one, well, first of all, I think he knew, as I argue in the book, that his time was up. So everything he did even before was sort of orchestrated, was a funerary rite, kind of like what David Bowie did. But he knew it, and he was fine with it, and he scared other people because he was telling people, my time is coming. Now, my favorite theory is that of the wounded healer, because as I argue in the book, Elvis is America's shaman. He's the witch doctor that led a generation into this brave new world of the space age and the nuclear age and the material world that was the United States after World War II and the Great Depression. And he was the one that was really casting magic and helping an entire nation understand itself and hold itself together and have some sort of joy and even rebellion against the status quo. So I make the argument that he was a shaman, and in a lot of cultures, you have the idea of the wounded healer. In other words, a shaman is chosen because they are broken. They have some sort of childhood trauma, a near-death experience, a disease, something like that. And when they are broken, just like we see in MK Ultra or a lot of shows like, you see it in a lot of shows that the children have access to the spirit world, and if you break the world, if you break them, it opens up, and this is what happens. So this wounded healer as a child has access to the spirit world, and this child is often chosen to be the shaman. It's decided they will be the shaman. And what happens is that they never heal their wounds. The wounds are kept open because they believe that it's their wounds that gives them power. It gives them empathy. It gives them access to the spiritual world. They think that they can heal others, not in spite of their wounds, but because of their wounds. Right. Their trauma is their superpower. So they tend not to take care of their own business, if you know what I mean. And in some cultures, the shaman does end up being overweight, drug addict, very unhealthy person, because also the shaman does carry the spiritual weight and even the sins of the tribe. Some have said Jesus was the original wounded healer. So that's even more, that's more of a burden that breaks them eventually. Their trauma, carrying the tribe. So when you look at Elvis that way, he does fit the wounded healer, especially as I argue with his magical powers, his healing abilities, his vision into other worlds, and how his music could just change an entire generation, transform people. Then it makes sense to see him that he was a wounded healer. He was our shaman, and unfortunately, shamans don't last that long.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me, for sure.
And you see it too. I mean, we all know that, right? We all know the trope, whether it's Jim Morrison, James Dean, Kurt Cobain. You know, this person is like, this guy, this artist can see into my soul and help me heal, but why are they such fuck-ups? You know, we know the type.
Yeah, for sure.
And you think it's just the drugs, rock and roll, and that's what's done it, but yeah, there's something a lot deeper.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel Neil Peart could fit the wounded healer?
Probably not. He was just a brilliant person, and God, he was such a incredible drummer and a lyricist. Oh God, I miss him. I miss him so much.
Yeah, no, for sure. We Neil, I mean, so my dad was a professional drummer. I drummed in bands and toured and stuff. So I grew up. Neil Peart was a hero always. And then you find out that he was so well versed in occult teachings and stuff, and those lyrics were all him. You know?
Yeah, still are great messages, great lyrics. So it's such a good band. So
yeah. I mean, he, in a sense, his trauma kind of happened later on in life. You know, he lost one of his kids
and his wife, I believe, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's maybe
When
just
he wrote that book and drove across North America on his bike.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
yeah, that
great
was
book as
great.
well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Canada, obviously you've got Jim Carrey probably has something from his childhood. Who knows? Don't knock her, but I really like Alanis Morissette. I mean, let's talk about somebody who really puts her pain and her shadow and her trauma for everybody to see.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
singer who does it. Sarah McLachlan is also great. Yeah, that was the time. Yeah, in the '90s when suddenly women didn't have to sing love songs; they could actually say, "All right, here's my trauma, here's my pain, here's my insanity," and just lay it on the table for the world to see. But very healing for other people.
Yeah, tragically hip. Gord Downey as well was he was I
Yeah.
mean he was a poet for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And agree, very healing. I don't know what I would have done without music,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Is
I
it
think
was Leonard Cohen? Is he Canadian or was
Canadian as well.
There
Yeah.
you go. There's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one. I mean, more of the Kabbalist shaman, but I mean, can't get more brilliant than that, right?
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Was always a fan of his lyrics, but not a huge fan of the music part of it, but his lyrics were fantastic.
Yeah.
I would rather read what he wrote versus hear him, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But somehow Neil Young gets all the glory. I don't know.
Hey, don't knock Neil.
He has his moments. Yeah, Neil has his moments. Yeah. No
Yeah.
doubt about it.
I think the mind virus has gotten a hold of him though a little bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Mixture of that and old age, yeah, for sure. But
And Daryl Hannah.
yeah.
It happens. Some of these old
Yeah.
folks just they sold out for safety, whether it's Gene Simmons, Howard Stern, all these guys that for us, Rage Against the Machine, all these guys are like these guys that we were young were like, these guys are gonna fight the power forever, and they sort of sold out and ran out of gas, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. And I don't see anyone in music today that really has taken any of that over. Not new artists anyway.
Yeah, well, it's so hard to break out as a new artist now. But like, without playing to the algorithm, that's kind of that's sort of taken over.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, but don't it wasn't easy back then because I'm writing the Elvis book and I'm just turned in my David Bowie bio, who was Elvis 2.0, the same figure. To realize the record industry was just savage. It was vampiric. It was mob run. It was just, you can say what you want about Colonel Parker, but what he did is he did protect Elvis from all those vampires and Watikos and, those that'll just, eat you up and throw you out, drain you of all your creativity and youth and all that, which is what these record companies did. So having a sort of a mobster like Colonel Parker was part of what allowed Elvis to thrive and grow as an artist. And you see that too. Peter Grant with Led Zeppelin. That guy was a thug, but he did open doors, and Epstein with the Beatles, DeFreeze with Bowie. These sort of evil managers were actually a necessary evil sometimes, because if you didn't have it, it was a short career and you were done or broke.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When do you have a date for when the Bowie book is going to be coming out?
I just turned it in, so it should be out next fall. Because the process, we still got to do editing. Yeah, the whole process has begun to get it ready for release. So it will be fascinating, because most people do know about Bowie's occult interest, but they don't really know how deep the rabbit hole goes. He was also on a level which is just astounding.
Yeah, he definitely wore it on his sleeve a little more than Elvis did, but I imagine if he was willing to put that much out there, what was behind the scenes,
Was hidden.
Yeah. He was very public about it and all that, but yeah, it really goes very deep. And again, he's very much like Elvis. I show how they're almost the same figure, especially with their impact, the wounded healer, their abilities, how they influence culture and all that. It's pretty much these space age messiahs, as I call them.
Yeah, awesome. Is there an Elvis 3.0 that you're aware of?
God, I hope not. God, I hope not. Because, I mean, yeah, I never thought, I thought, oh, this is my 15 minutes of being a biographer and then I could move on. But then this other voice started coming like, there's another story. I need you to write it. People forgot this, and it was David Bowie. And I was like, there's no way David Bowie's like Elvis. And my jaw just dropped when I saw it. It's like, oh my God, they're the same figure. So I can't think of anybody. I mean, sometimes I even try to play the game. Could it be Prince? Could it be Michael Jackson? I mean, I can't think of John Lennon. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's that. Yeah, I mean, Bowie was definitely one of a kind. I don't.
Yeah, very unique.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Elvis and Bowie were definitely androgynous, trickster shamans, kind of magicians. All I can think of is Prince, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my suggestion for Elvis 3.0 would have probably been Prince, but yeah, cool.
We shall see. I'll let the voices guide me.
There you go.
But it takes its toll when you're channeled. It really takes a toll. It takes a toll on your health. It takes a toll on your mental health and your life. It's, you know what I mean? Because these spirits, they latch onto you and they will consume you. So it happens to artists. It can happen to anybody once you're consumed by these forces.
Yeah, for sure. So you're in a period of rest now, I take it then.
Yeah, we'll see. I just turned in the book, so let's see how long I can rest. Let's see how long I can rest for.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, we're hitting the hour mark here, so I don't want to keep you all night, but really appreciate you jumping on and having this chat with us. It was a lot of fun. Pleasure to meet you, and like I said, we're fans of the show, so we'll keep listening, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
All right, enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on, and good luck on your journey. Don't stop.
Thanks, Miguel. We won't.
Thank you very much, Miguel.
All right, Miguel Conner, everybody. Take it easy.